don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. I learned this the hard way with my first company, so I created NetSuite, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need to make smart decisions and grow with confidence. That's why companies who use NetSuite grow 3 times faster than the S&P 500.
Schedule your free product tour right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Leaders Show. We're live every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, talking key issues and news at the intersection of business and technology, with a special focus on automation, AI, and digital transformation in hopes of making you a better digital leader. Today, we're discussing women in AI, plus AI governance, risk, and compliance use cases, plus headlines for digital leaders. Thank you to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite, a unified cloud business management solution that helps organizations operate more effectively by automating core processes and providing real-time visibility into operational and financial performance. IRPA AI members and followers can receive special pricing and resources. Go to irpaai.com/NetSuite for more information. I'm Dan Goodstein. I head up the Institute for RPA and AI, as well as the Digital Enterprise Institute. We're a professional association, media, and peer-to-peer research network, providing education, networking, and advice to over 130,000 members all around the world, focused on automation, enterprise AI, and digital transformation. My co-host is Krista Sande-Kerback, Senior Advisor for IRPA AI, and formerly Advisor for the White House Chief Transformation Office, Gartner Partner for Digital Transformation, and EY Automation and AI Practice Lead. Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We survived April Fool's Day.
You made it. Anybody get you?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I was spared. My family usually takes April Fool's Day very, very seriously, but being the day after Easter this year, it just kind of threw us off. So the kids were disappointed to not get any April Fool's jokes this year.
Yeah, well, so you can store more for later in the year, perhaps. We'll see.
Yeah. Just keep it going throughout the year. Keep them on their toes. Well, listen, Chris, there's a bunch of stuff in the headlines, and it's all a lot of it's related to our topic today, which is good. But I saw this article. I think it was in TechCrunch about Apple trying to make the Vision Pro more collaborative. I'm not sure if this is cool or creepy, but you now can kind of collaborate with other, I don't know, they kind of look like ghosts. I don't know. Have you seen this?
Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, this is not really new technology. When I was at HP, like 12 years ago now, we had Erasmus, which same sort of technology and so forth. I guess it's taken a while for it to mature, although we had some really mature use cases all that time ago. I think there's a degree of inevitability to this, but the other thing that you're getting is, you're familiar with the that uncanny line, the thing where you get so close to reality that the closer you get to it being photorealistic, the more it creeps you out, like you just said, creepy. And I think a lot of these technologies are bordering on that to a certain extent. So I think as we think about what we're going to be talking later too, like the psychology of AI and so forth and so on, we need to be cognizant that we're still biological creatures, and we've been given some very interesting tools for looking for things that aren't real.
Yeah, part of me loves it, and part of me is freaked out by at least this rendition or this rendering that they released. But yeah, I mean that's been the criticism of it, right? It's right now, at least, it's an isolating technology and not as much of a collaborative thing. I thought for a while that this thing gets to the next level when it becomes really a collaboration tool versus just kind of a gaming and independent kind of situation. But Apple's also in the news this week. There was a very, very kind of interesting piece around Apple TV and Jon Stewart from the Daily Show. Allegedly, Apple told him when he was with them with his past podcast show on Apple TV not to interview the FTC chairwoman Lisa Khan, as things kind of heat up with them from a regulatory standpoint. I guess they didn't like the idea of poking the bear. But, it gets back to some of the topics we've talked about, which is, with a lot of the consolidation of tech companies and, blending of different industries, this is bound to happen and concerning, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you use the analogy of a bear, and I've worked in regulatory compliance for a long time. Once you can poke the bear for a while, but once you poke a little too hard, you're going to wake it up. And I think we've seen a little bit of that. I've written recently how the FTC has gotten pretty aggressive in a lot of cases like this, and I think you can expect even more of that sort of oversight going forward. So, the other analogy is trying to turn the Titanic with a teaspoon. It takes a while to get it to turn, but once it starts turning, you aren't going to stop it. So I think we're going to see more of that, actually.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the antitrust thing is really getting speed. We talked last week about some of the Google and Apple products and marketplaces being targeted. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that the timing of all of this stuff with the AI announcements, and then there's AT&T, who's been in the news probably more than they want to be lately. First, they have this outage, hundreds of thousands of AT&T users down for several hours a few weeks back, and now this past weekend announced this leak of data for 73 million customers. I know this sounds naive, Chris, but how does this stuff still happen? I mean, it's amazing to me that a company who does communications for a living can have that kind of outage. And with all the things going on right now around privacy and security, we keep seeing these breaches. I know a lot of our cybersecurity friends would say, hey, it's just inevitable. But I don't know. I mean, a company like, if it's happening to a company like AT&T, who knows what's happening downstream, right?
So this takes me back, and I always go back to my spacecraft days, and this is all the law of large numbers in effect, right? So you have millions of people that are counting on AT&T to be up. It's up the vast majority of the time. I mean, the reliability of these infrastructure systems is astronomically awesome until it isn't. And then all of a sudden, everyone's affected because you expect it and you rely upon it to be there, and you only notice when it's not. So being an engineer in these sorts of roles is oftentimes very thankless. And that law of large numbers thing also applies to cybersecurity. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The bad guys, so quote unquote bad guys, only need to be right once, whereas you as the defense have to be right all the time. These are principles that we talk about a lot in cybersecurity. And there's just a degree of inevitability that it's going to take place. So this is why when we talk about governance, there has to be sort of a layered defense. There has to be a lot of focus on when the bad thing happens, what do we do, how do we respond? And that's all stuff that you actually have to practice it. You actually have to try it out and constantly be vigilant for it, because again, in this world of very large numbers, this is very pertinent to the world of AI. In the world of very large numbers, when something goes wrong, it's probably going to go wrong in a pretty catastrophic way unless you tested it, prepared for it, and trained for it ahead of time. And not a lot of people are doing that stuff.
So I'm going to say something I haven't said in a while. I'm cautiously optimistic about what the government is doing, Chris. I don't get to say that too often. I want to unpack this White House announcement from Office of Management and Budget, this policy announcement. But reading over it yesterday and today, what I found really interesting is it kind of covers the two things you hear over and over again, and even in the European law, things around strengthening safety and mitigating risks. And part of the policy is by December 1st, all these federal agencies have to implement safeguards around transparency and responsible AI, which we're going to talk about with our guest today. But it also uses some words that I don't know. You're more of an expert in this than I, but I don't think are as common in regulatory policy, where they're talking about innovation, advancing innovation and growing the AI workforce. So it was I'm kind of optimistic. Am I being too optimistic? What do you think?
No, I think there is a fear that we'll overregulate. I think there's no question right now is AI is the next social media. It's the next internet search engine. It's the next great platform of the information technology world. So there's a great deal of concern. How do we control it so that it doesn't kind of get out of hand in bad ways? But how do we also not prevent it from having a very positive impact on the world? And that's always the challenge of engineering and technology. Technology always brings good and it always has bad. So how do we embrace the good aspects of it, because it's going to do miraculously wonderful things for us, but how do we also mitigate the negative? To me, one of the greater challenges of this is saying, and working in this space, you can say every department, every agency has to have policies in place. Well, there's a human workforce implication to making that statement. That means I need thousands of people who are knowledgeable, trained, talented, experienced in doing this stuff, and they're just not there. So how do you get those folks? There's kind of the running jokes that you see on LinkedIn where people point out, if someone wants to hire a generative AI engineer, it must have at least 10 years of experience with ChatGPT. This indicates that we have a talent problem and an understanding problem. So I think, interestingly enough, as we look at AI potentially causing significant losses in jobs, we're also seeing simultaneously it's going to bring significant demands for really rare people with the necessary skill sets, and they're just not out there yet. So, it brings both good and bad, positive and negative challenges with it.
So the policy talks about responsible AI and addressing what they consider kind of priority areas and removing quote unquote unnecessary barriers to federal agencies, especially around climate crisis, natural disasters, advancing public health, protecting public safety. But like you said, it doesn't stop there. Right? By summer, current administration is committed to 100 AI professionals, hiring 100 AI professionals. Addressing the jobs issue, flexibility around AI roles to improve retention. And they've got 4,800 participants across 78 industries last year in training, AI related training, and they've added $5 million to expand that. So yeah, I mean, all the things we talk about, right? Training, governance. I mean, there's even something in here about having to publicly disclose the kind of inventory of AI use cases. I mean, these are things that we recommend in the corporate world, in the enterprise world. And again, I was pleasantly surprised to see this in a government document.
They're taking it very seriously, as well they should. This is all goodness. But there's going to be a level of urgency, I think, that we haven't seen in the past, which is true of this technology. I mean, let's face it, it's absolutely exploited faster than anything previously. And so getting people up to speed, not only on the core tenets of the technology. I mean, I know that I took Matrix Map a long time ago, and it was not fun. But if you're going to talk about transparency of something, a technology like transformers, it necessarily requires that you understand Matrix Map. So how many people do we have standing around with that background and that can come up to speed on transformers and generative AI, et cetera? So we have an immediate need for expertise that may take decades potentially to instill in people. So we're going to have a significant talent shortfall. Not to brag, but this is something I talked about like 12 years ago, that the implication of this technology was going to be the opposite from a talent perspective than what many people thought. So we're going to have a crunch on one end, which says a lot of low value added, if you will, knowledge worker jobs are going to disappear simply because we can automate them away. But then, this high end stuff, really understanding governance and how the systems actually work and how to make them resilient and so forth, are going to be structurally rare for potentially years because it takes a long time to build up the necessary expertise.
Yeah. So let's invite our guest. Our guest today, I want to welcome back to the show, Krista Sande-Kerback. She's an IBM marketing leader of AI governance and GRC. Also a featured speaker on Gen AI governance, automation, digital transformation, marketing, organizational change, and women in technology, which is one of our topics for today. Krista, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm embarrassed at how long it's been. I was looking at the archives, and last time we had you on was a lot long. I thought it was a few months ago. It was a while back now. Well, great to have you back. And there's kind of two aspects of your role that I think are very, very relevant to what's going on, and certainly on our network right now. I want to start by asking you about some of the. I know you're a passion of yours, and something that you do in your current role is kind of AI, women in AI, and I'm really curious as to how you kind of see your role as a kind of evangelist for this, and getting females to contribute more to the AI landscape.
Well, March was, of course, Women's History Month, but I'm actually glad that we're not having this conversation in March because, of course, we know that these conversations need to happen year round. And there were a lot of fantastic events, insights, and more honoring women during this time. Please support those and amplify those voices on LinkedIn and other platforms. A few of the things on my mind right now is that one big stat that's a little bit scary to me is that the year that women will achieve parity, according to recent projections, is 2154. And this is according to the Global Gender Gap Report from the World Economic Forum. So then there's a few different measures of this, but they're all pretty grim. I've also been looking at a study called the Reykjavik Index for Leadership, which is a study of perceptions of men's and women's leadership, suitability for leadership, conducted across about 35,000 participants from 23 countries. And the question asked in that study is, do you think men or women or both equally are better suited to leadership positions? And to cut to the chase, the study shows that the scores are about 71 out of 100 for women and 64 out of 100 for men. We're finding that young men are more regressive than older generations. Scores have declined. And we're finding that 52 to 57% of women and 43 to 49% of men are comfortable with women as either a CEO or a leader of a country. And these findings are spurred by some of the recent rise in populism and young people feeling disenfranchised. So I just wanted to share some of that to set the context that we have a lot of issues to solve. And, we're talking about this globally, but I do think that AI has the potential to be the great equalizer. I do think there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a need as well. One of my other statistics when it comes to women in generative AI is that 8 out of 10 women's jobs versus 6 out of 10 men's jobs will be significantly impacted by AI-powered automation. So I think that there's a clear need to be talking about this with different communities. And this is not a women in STEM conversation. This is a conversation about that's global, that's for women and men in the workforce today. And so we have an opportunity and we have a need to help each other get educated on AI. And I seek to do that with the communities that I speak to, with my everyday work. And I'm very excited to talk more about that today.
So what are some of the strategies you recommend, Krista, for those watching saying, wow, I didn't realize those numbers, or maybe I did, but I need to figure out how to, impact it. What do you suggest, or what initiatives have you seen implemented kind of address the gender gap specifically to the AI space? Because I think it's where we're going. It's, as Chris said, kind of where the opportunities are, but also adds its own set of challenges too as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the hope is to get women in power and into effective leadership roles. And this includes the use of technology. So as I said, I'm personally on a mission to help accelerate this. And part of that is mentorship. Part of this is I do speaking engagements and encourage others to do the same, and to be talking about the latest in the news and getting each other up to speed. But also it's really listening, really understand some of the pain points, how people are using technology in their workflows today to be able to facilitate a broader conversation about all of these important topics. I also wanted to share that, and this is a resource that attendees can take away. So I work at IBM. Of course, I'm here representing my own views today, but IBM just published a new study on how women can tap into generative AI to deliver strategic business value. And it's on Women Can Forge the Future of AI. And what we're seeing is that 40% of women are already using generative AI for graphic design, image and video generation, and other things. But 59% say that they're still waiting for guidance for their companies before they use it regularly. and 60% say that there aren't enough women leading the conversation about generative AI. So to kind of recap that, I mean, it's mentorship, it's having the conversations, it's listening and engaging, but it's also organizations have an opportunity to communicate clearly about this and support our employees in getting up the curve. And there's resources that companies like IBM provides. For instance, we have an initiative called Skills Build, where there's AI education that's free, and IBM seeks to educate 2 million people in AI with a specific focus on underrepresented communities by 2026. So taking advantage of these resources, these certifications, I think is really important. And then finally, communities like this community, the IRPA AI and digital enterprise communities that you have. I'm part of a number of women's organizations focused on professional women, and we all can talk and help each other.
What about the bias issue? You know, with AI comes, you know, theoretically, you know, embedded biases with algorithms. How do you address that? And are you seeing that? I mean, there's always this stuff in the news about, you know, some of these AI projects gone wrong. Are those blown out of proportion, or are those kind of the tip of the iceberg?
No, though. I mean, those are very real issues, and a majority of leaders see that as a challenge and something that needs to be solved. Because of the way that generative AI models are trained and used, it's even more important, and at the same time, it's more difficult to identify and mitigate against bias. I mean, it all starts with having good data. So that's a really important foundation, and having the right data governance as a starting point. Without that, you really can't use AI. And then, of course, there's this concern that generative AI will simply propagate or even magnify this. So I'm sensing that there's a strong and even emerging legal requirement that models must be checked for bias before they're released, and they must be automatically monitored for bias as well. So IBM technologies allow organizations to do that. There's, you know, you can immediately see flag if there's drift in a model, go back in and correct that. I think that's really important. And you know, this is a broader conversation of, you need to look at it from the lens of the model, but we also need to be, and this is part of why we need diverse voices in the conversation, is that we need to be challenging our models as well.
Chris, anything on your mind?
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, one of the things that we've seen repeatedly is that
I think we're having some audio issues on your end, Chris.
Yeah,
so, you know, Krista, as a father of a 9-year-old daughter, what do you suggest? How do we encourage more women and more girls to pursue careers in AI? I mean, I tried to be the good tech dad and buy some STEM toys for Christmas, but other than that, what's your suggestion?
I mean, when it comes to the schools, that's a big one. And the question is, how do you balance a traditional liberal arts education, traditional in the fundamentals, along with AI education? And it's a both and, because I mean, kids are so savvy and should be exposed to this technology, you know, by like the age of your daughter, I think, and should know how to use it. But education can't be limited to learning how to write prompts in an AI engine. So it's definitely a mix. I mean, we need to have that education early to give both boys and girls a chance to, get up that learning curve, expose them to it. It's going to be part of their, future reality in the workforce, but then also continuing to emphasize all of those skills that we're teaching in the schools anyway. I mean, being a good, ethical human being, communicating well. It was so important to me to learn how to write a good essay when I was in high school, and learn how to think critically. Those and creativity. I mean, those skills are even more important in this world of AI. So we need to do both and balance it. And I also think that it's important that kids get out and play and get a break from technology. But yeah, this is a big topic of conversation with the communities I talk to, of course. I'm curious what you're seeing, what you're seeing in the school system with your kids, Dan.
Well, I don't know who's watching this, but I think, I think there's some general effort. I think that, you see certain things like, STEM club and, a lot of it's, historically been kind of physical robotics, right? I think there's been more and more of a push lately towards, logic and coding and things like that, but it's still not, I don't think it still hasn't become core to the curriculum. It's more like, hey, we're going to have this this STEM competition once a year, that kind of thing, and all the way up to the academic leaders that I speak to at large universities even have been very, very slow to get into this area. Chris, are you back? Whenever you
Yeah, can you hear me okay now?
You're a little better now.
Yeah, some tech expert, right? No, along those lines, my oldest is now almost 15. She started taking robotics and software coding classes when she was 5. So it makes me think of William Gibson, the old sci-fi writer, who said, the future's already here. It's just unevenly distributed. And Chris, I think you would agree. The challenge that we face is how do we make it more evenly distributed to everybody so that we get that more diverse perspective, diverse inputs, and as a result, cumulatively better results out there.
So, Krista, I want to move to the GRC stuff. I mean, you're in a unique position in your role at IBM. You and I have talked offline a lot about this. I feel like all my conversations with members are, almost all about the same thing right now, which is excitement around AI, but how to do it with the right guardrails in place. If last year was the year of AI, I think this is the year of, responsible AI or trustworthy AI. What's your, this is what you've done at IBM in recent months. How do you deal with these regulatory changes? How do you ensure compliance? What are some of the nuggets you would tell people? Because the reality is there are use cases out there. There are ways to do this today.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the top use cases in the GRC space are kind of looking at holistic enterprise or operational risk management. Regulatory compliance is a huge one. I mean, that's going to be number 1 or 2. You could audit management, data privacy, IT risk management. There's a lot of different use cases here. And the work that I do with IBM Open Pages is helping organizations of all sizes better manage that risk holistically. And we also have another product, watsonx Governance, which also has regulatory compliance, model risk governance, and risk management capabilities. And that's kind of a nutrition label for your data. So I'm hearing in some of the latest conversations in the news, I think it was the U.S. Department of Treasury released a report on managing artificial intelligence and specific cybersecurity risks in financial services, and they talk about the nutrition label concept as well. And I think that is an apt description to think about. Okay, hey, is my AI models healthy? And then within that broader governance, risk, and compliance space, is my organization managing that risk appropriately? So, the product that I work with offers risk assessments, offers feeds from different news sources to help organizations stay on top of the latest regulatory requirements, and then determine if that new regulation applies to their organization, and how they can manage that going forward. So, I mean, lots of interest in this, and it's very very important. And so many of the conversations that I have, even just on a day-to-day basis, are people thinking about risk and compliance. I mean, it's not one person's job in an organization. It's really everybody's job. So there's a lot more that I can say on that because it's it's such a rich topic, but I think this is a critical time, and it's also just like there's no better time to kind of get that right for your organization and make sure that that's part of your AI implementation.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before you joined, right? Talking about some of the headlines, AT&T just being the most recent one about these leaks, these data hacks. So I'm curious, with all these high-profile data breaches and compliance violations, I think it just underscores the importance of risk management practices. So, what's your advice for an organization who, maybe does not have a robust risk management practice? How do you start, and what are some of the top things you would recommend?
I think that organizations are starting to really align around this now, and some recommendations I'd have is to do a maturity assessment, to first of all bring in your stakeholders, and this is a wide group. You want to have like a chief information security officer, chief technology officer. You want to have an HR perspective, legal, risk and compliance. Like bring these voices together, and also diverse voices. While we're on the topic of women in AI. You want this to be, you want everybody to come together, bring it into the culture, and then make sure that you're an organization, first of all, that wants to and can bring in AI, but you want to do it in a responsible way. And so responsible AI needs to be part of everybody's jobs. But then within the organization, look at it as an opportunity to, think about, you could start from pilot phase, and then, gradually build on successful pilots and scale from there. And there's a lot of ability to plug into like existing technology strategy and tools. But I think, you need to come together and have a, and really put together kind of your strategy as an organization around this. And with the passing of the EU AI Act, biggest challenge for the organization to figure out like how ready am I to comply? And there's risk assessments and other tools available to help you do that. So, not very well. You're gobbled.
Chris, I'm gonna buy you a microphone. Hey, this is a bad April Fool's joke. No, but and I'm also curious. I wanted to ask you, Krista, about it's not as much of a surprise as maybe it was a few years ago, but there's still a significant amount of remote work. There's still a significant amount of transformation initiatives happening within organizations. So how do you kind of adapt the GRC process to address the risks and challenges associated with a more remote or distributed workforce?
I think when it comes down to remote work and comes down to usage of ChatGPT, Zoom, other technologies, or remote work, a lot of it comes down to at a fundamental level communication. And of course, I say that as a marketing person, but clear communication is kind, and we need to double down on our communication here and just be clear and direct. I think also we need to challenge our assumptions that remote workers are lazy because the data doesn't back this up. Again, from that gender equity perspective, there's an issue here too. Obviously, a lot of organizations are trying to bring people back into the office, and that can be very good for collaboration. But there's also some other things to layer on top of this, which is that many women are trying to re-enter the workforce after leaving the pandemic, and this is a real challenge during the current layoffs. And if you can, get employees working in supportive, inclusive environments that maybe allow some of that flexibility, flexible working, I think you're going to see that, people are already rising to the challenges. Employees are 6 times more likely to innovate in these very supportive environments. And it's not just a DE&I issue. It's also just good business sense to, allow diverse teams to thrive in the best possible way that they can. So again, from that inclusivity point of view, I think it's important. From communications perspective, that's also critical. And then also making sure that you've set that up in a way in your organization that it's safe to do that, and making it very clear for employees what they can and cannot do when it comes to managing what tools that they can use and how they're using company IP.
Are you finding that's very prevalent? You think about, especially in Europe, but more and more here, things around sustainability and social responsibility. Is the DEI stuff and the ESG stuff in most people's frameworks now, or is that something that's just starting to show up, maybe at least in the US?
I'm seeing a lot of interest in this topic, and I'm seeing a lot of conversation. So from the ESG point of view, sustainability is really interesting when it comes to AI, because on one hand, AI can really solve a lot of sustainability challenges. can eliminate paper, it can eliminate waste, and has a huge number of use cases for that. But it's also super energy intensive, especially generative AI.
No one talks about that, Krista. I feel like that's one of the big, like with all the AI news you get bombarded with, that's the one issue that we talk a lot about the regulatory and the compliance and some of those things, but I feel like very few people are really talking about the energy consumption issues of this, especially when it's democratized to the point where anybody can really get access to these tools now, right?
And that's just underscores why we need to be talking to diverse communities with diverse communities about these topics, because that's where a lot of those conversations and those questions are getting asked. And where I first, when it first occurred to me, oh, wait, yeah, I need to research and understand this better. One book that I'd recommend is Kate Crawford's book, The Atlas of AI, where she actually talks about the planetary costs of AI. And she sees AI as a series of cold physical truths, in her words, and said that to do generative AI at scale is 5 to 50 times more energy intensive than traditional models. And we really have to look at the whole supply chain. As you can imagine, some of the rare earth elements and that are extracted are taken from parts of the world like Mongolia, and where it's really, really impacting the people and the earth. So this is a super important topic. Open Pages has a risk management for ESG solution that helps organizations do compliance and disclosure management, risk assessments, and objective management about how it impacts them from an ESG perspective. So absolutely, there's tools out there, but we need to be having those conversations and really thinking about how this technology impacts our society. And I know that IBM, for instance, has done some quite a lot of research and innovation in developing a brain-like chip that uses less energy. I know other companies are doing that as well, and we need to be continuing that and having the conversation. And then organizations really need to think about the size of the models that they're building, and we need to really be asking those questions for the sake of our planet.
No, it's interesting. I've talked a little bit about the power consumption issue, but I don't know that we've talked about the inequities of where these things are being manufactured, and you're making me recollect a couple different seemingly unrelated stories, but that they all kind of fit under this umbrella of, okay, so we know that a lot of the chip manufacturers, the silicon issue, the issues of where the silicon comes from, which is becoming more and more of an issue with AI because we need more and more of these GPUs. But also I've read instances where the power plants for maintaining mining cryptocurrency are put in certain communities that where underprivileged maybe communities are being taken advantage of. So you see there's issues related to that. What's the answer? I mean, and then you also see we covered this a few weeks ago on the show. The number of DEI executives has actually gone down in recent months, or maybe the last year or so. So how do you kind of marry those two things up? Maybe AI is the answer, but how do you start kind of marrying those two things up? And is it talked about enough?
I don't think that it's talked about enough, and should be more. I think, and this has been backed up by all the conversations that I've been having over the last year. We need to have diverse voices at the table because these questions get asked. Women, I think about the risks intuitively and holistically. We're offering everybody a new vernacular and legal framework around these topics around AI, but we can use the leadership and research and teaming that we already have. And so I think we need to keep engaging in the conversations. We need to keep amplifying diverse voices and calling attention to these things. And as organizations are deciding what their AI strategy is, really looking at this within the context of that broader mission. And who are we what are we as an organization? What do we stand for?
Yeah, interesting. Krista, any final words of advice or recommendations? You mentioned that book. Any other resources that people should be looking at?
Well, lots of suggestions. I think from a gender equality perspective, I think we need to keep fighting the good fight. I think one line that I heard is that it's only possible with courageous women and kind men. We all need to be working together on this, and it'll improve our workplaces. The business case is clear, that organizations will perform better with diverse teams. And I think, a few other things, like we can't work all the time. Like there's so much work to be done, but I think that we need to bring in and mobilize our communities. We need to take more responsibility, but have the trust of the people around us as well. And I say this as, somebody who, and who knows so many women who take on the work, who take on the mental load, the work at home. Too bad AI can't fully do my laundry from end to end, or these other things.
Yet, Krista.
Yet. I know. I was like, I don't want AI to write my papers for me so much as I wanted to do my laundry and my dishes. But we need to come together in communities and like help release some of that. And I think there's also like a, forgiveness element, is that like there's a part of me that's frustrated that we're, seeing the date pushed back further and further for gender equality and what's happened here. But, we got to forgive ourselves, and like we do what we can, and, keep fighting the good fight. But it's really not a fight. I shouldn't even say. It's like, it's bringing attention to these important issues. It's trying to make this technology as good as it can be. There's a whole other set of topics that we could, get into on deep fakes and everything that's going on with the upcoming elections around the world. And there's certainly areas that we can solve today around building around the way that we bring together stakeholders in an organization to really set that AI strategy carefully, while continuing to build awareness of some of these broader issues and setting that AI governance in place.
Well, Krista, thank you. You're a great voice for both of these topics, and I know you have some new announcements coming up in future months on initiatives you'll be working on. But we'd love to have you back. I won't wait a year to have you back on the show next time, I promise. And thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I always love talking about these topics, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're back to weekly Digital Leaders Shows live now every Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. If there's a topic you want us to cover, or if you have any questions, always reach out to us, IRPAai.com. You can also visit IRPAai.com to join our free membership or schedule a complimentary industry use case briefing or Art of the Possible coaching session. It's free. It's something we do as a industry association. So go ahead and visit IRPAai.com to schedule that. In the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Take care.